3:07. You may remember that horrible story about a month ago when an online link was posted containing compromising, provocative photographs of girls from all over Australia, including Western Australia and Perth. Well, it's happened again. This time it's involving girls as young as 14. And I have to say, it's a parent's worst nightmare. Apparently, these photographs and videos were sent by West Australian women to people they trusted. But they've certainly ended up in the wrong hands on a new website set so that the content expires every 2 days, but allowing users to download that content. Paul Litherland is a cyber safety expert and he joins me now. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jane, and to listeners as well. How are you going?
Well, thanks, Paul. What do you make of this latest website, web page link?
It's just, I think it's just another reminder now for teens in Perth and young people just to really understand the risk in regards to the taking of nudes or intimate photos and then obviously sending them on to partners or to peers online and just how vulnerable they can be and just more importantly where their images are going.
And Paul, we were sitting around talking about this, some of us parents, as we were preparing this program and thinking, you know, we're so lucky because this technology wasn't around. People didn't have smartphones because when you're a teenager, sometimes you do silly things, and in our day, those things were quickly forgotten. These images can last forever, can't they?
And that's exactly right. And this is where it is difficult for a number of parents, especially the parents of teens. The environment that kids are playing in is completely different to what we were when we were younger, Jane. So their playground has increased dramatically. They're online now. So the risks that maybe you and I might have taken as teens, as you said, wasn't as far-reaching. But a lot of our kids just don't understand that. Our teens, as I said, especially. But it's not because they're stupid. It's just because they're teens. That's what they do. They take risks. So it's just a matter of trying to really educate them as best we can in regards to assessing those risks. And this sort of incident is just a testament to that, really.
And Paul, I believe that's one of the things that you do is go around to schools and educate teens. What sorts of things do you tell them?
I discuss critical things such as this, and without being disrespectful to the girls who are caught up in this, this is just a great example to offer kids to say, look, if you are considering trusting a person you're going to send such an intimate photo to, you've really got to assess that because these girls are now sitting there and, as you know, a number of them can be found by a suburb or even their own school. And this is the massive risk that they're opening themselves to, regardless of, which I think is a completely different argument altogether, Jane, in regard to the people, and unfortunately they're usually males, who are acting so morally corrupt in sending on those photos that they receive, photos that are supposed to be intimate and private.
And Paul, how can you educate these young men who are sharing these private photographs? How can you educate the guys about the consequences of their actions?
It is difficult, again, because kids do take risks, teens do take risks, but the biggest message I send as sort of Surf Online Safe presentation at high schools is just to make the boys really understand where that photo's come from in regards to the emotional state of things. It's not just, oh, here you go, have a look, check it out and show your mates. It's understanding the intimacy and the love and the compassion that's coming from that image. But, of course, we all know that boys don't think that way. So it's about finding that happy medium to also explain to the young girls that boys aren't going to look at the photo in the same manner that it may have been sent. So this is where it's just trying to find that happy medium. And I think as hopefully as legislation also continues to catch up with us, that risk, I suppose, boys are taking in sharing these photos might be hopefully a consequence.
We'll get on to legislation in a moment, but Paul, what's the reaction like? What sort of things do you say when you're talking to the boys and as you say, they think differently, they react differently to the photograph and perhaps don't understand the intent behind what they've been sent? Do you ever feel like you're getting through? Do you see reactions that you think, yes, they understand?
Yeah, I do. It's about offering succinct and real-life examples. And again, situations such as this now, it's a lot of these kids are known to a number of kids at schools or at least through peer networks. So it's not just, this will never happen to me and my partner or my boyfriend or girlfriend would never do that to me. But it's just understanding that it is real and it's, it's about 11% of boys will be caught out in this way and also 6% of girls. And those numbers are continuing to increase. Why? Because kids are expressing themselves in so many more different ways now. So it's about just really trying to hammer that education. And as I said, I show really good examples of young girls who were 14, maybe 15 years of age, who are now 24, 25, who are still, whenever they go for a job interview or meet a new person, they sit there and go, I hope they don't Google my name, I hope they don't Google my name. And that in itself is just a horrible situation to be in.
Absolutely. I believe that in the most recent forum, men had asked for photographs of girls and women by name and school. Yep. Paul, what's that telling us?
Well, again, that's telling us that there is a culture out there that unfortunately is quite immoral. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great people out there. And unfortunately, like anything, this is just a percentage of people who are taking advantage. But to sit there and have a look at this site and read, I assume guys who are posting names and going, oh, look, she goes to this school. If anyone has any nudes, surely there's an ex there who's got one who can send one. That's just absolutely horrible. And it not only says a lot about them as an individual, but also obviously their background and how they've been raised. But it's just, again, it's about pushing that onus back onto the kids. And unfortunately, it's mainly girls who are taking these risks just to really assess, because it's not so much about whether you can trust him or not. It's can you trust where the photo is going to go next? And we've seen in this instance here, I mean, you can close down website after website after website, but in reality, these boys are still in possession of those images. So it's only just a matter of the next website they post them on and they're up again. So very hard.
I haven't seen the site, but I was reading in the West today, one user said, nobody dates a girl and does not keep her nudes. Yeah. Let's see what you have. That sort of comment, I think, would just strike chills through many, and I read it out today in the hope that there are perhaps parents in cars going to pick up their children from school, because if you've missed it, it's probably one of the things you really need to think about. It's probably one of those chats that parents need to have with their children, Paul.
And sadly, it's got to start younger and younger now, Jane. I mean, this conversation, again, when we were younger, may have been around 14, 15 years of age, but now we've got to start talking to our kids pretty much at 10 and 11 and really get them to understand, and not try to scare them or freak them out, but just to get an understanding of, unfortunately, there are people out there who are going to take advantage of you. And sadly, my time at Technology Crime as a police officer there, we had young girls who were 12 and 13 who were making errors of judgment in trusting boys, and their photos were getting out there. So it's about really just trying our best. But I just get so frustrated because, as I said, our playground has changed. And the analogy I use, if the school was to create a playground and say to their kids, here you go, you can go and play, but there's got jagged edges and rusty nails. Oh, but if your kids get hurt, too bad, so sad. But you can't do that in the real world. You'd get sued. But for some reason in the online world, this is what's happening. Here's your environment. Go and play. But, hey, if anything goes wrong, it's not our problem. We're not responsible for our users. And I think that needs to change. It has to change.
So how can it change? Can these young women take any legal action, Paul?
If they're under the age of 16, yes, they can. But if they've shared an intimate photo or a sexually explicit photo, obviously technically that's child porn. So any boy or other person who chooses to then distribute that photo is obviously distributing child porn. But what we need to look at, and in Victoria, they've only recently introduced some legislation in November of last year, which is, in its broad sense, revenge porn. So this is where I think change needs to happen in Perth. So, and it sounds horrible, Jane, but I think we need to concede defeat that our young girls are going to continue to send nudes, because that's the risks they do take at times. But I think where we need to change is pushing the onus back on the person who receives it, not to send it on. And this is where this legislation works really good. So if someone chooses to send on an intimate private image and post it online without the consent of the person who took it or sent it, then they're liable for a criminal offence. And I think that's where the change needs to come in, and hopefully that will minimise these girls getting exposed literally online as advanced as they have been, unfortunately.
Except, of course, you'll be bound by ages too there, won't you? Because sometimes it's probably quite young people receiving those who post them online. So how will that work?
Well, I mean, the legislation can be stipulated or to obviously include children. So, and the Victorian legislation is in the fact that, say, if a child is sent on a photo of another child, as long as they're no more than 2 years older than that particular person, then some leniency within the legislation can be identified. But if someone who's 20 or 30 who's sent on a nude of another person who's 20 or 30, then the legislation, I reckon, should be thrown at them in full swing, because this is where we need to make the change. I mean, all you need to do is jump on one of the world's most popular sites, Tumblr, and search 3 words, teen nude selfie, and you're going to come up with 476 pages, over 300,000 images of young girls who made the mistake of trusting a person they sent it to. So this is where I say it's difficult to stop that, but I reckon it'll be a little bit easier to at least push the onus back onto those kids to say, look, if you've received it and you send it on and you get found out, you're in big trouble. And I think that's where we need to change things.
And these photos are forever. Paul,
Exactly right.
I'll leave you with this SMS that Felicity has sent through to the program this afternoon. I have happily let my 11-year-old daughter listen to this interview about the nude photos on the internet. She said, why would you send the photos in the first place? Let's hope she keeps thinking like that. Regards, Felicity.
Right. And most kids do assess that risk quite well. It's unfortunately some kids, like all teens, people choose to drink and drive, people choose to do things that they really shouldn't be doing, and it's just a matter of trying to really help them out as best we can if things do go wrong.
Paul Litherland, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. All the best, Jane.
That is Paul Litherland. He is cyber security expert.